All right, says we're live. Hopefully we've got some people waiting and it shows up as working. What's happening, Fish and Friends? Welcome to another live. Looks like we do have some people in here waiting, so I think we're good. As always, somebody just let me know in the comments that we're working. I want to make sure audio and everything is coming through and we're doing well. But tonight, I'm excited. We should have a good show. No Randizzle tonight. He's got an ear infection or something. I don't know what's going on with that guy. Looks like we have people saying hello. Are we working? Yeah, somebody let me know. Are we working? Baxter says, you good, homie. All right. What's up, big man? Cool. Well, tonight I've got the man, the myth, the 10-horse Monty that I've supposed to have on here a long time ago. I was on your channel. How long ago was that? That seems like forever ago now.
A month and a half, maybe I had like 2 months. I don't know. Time flies, man.
Yeah, I know.
Something like that.
It's been a minute, so I needed to get you on my channel. It didn't work out. We had a couple dates planned, but you're here finally.
Thank you. It's good to be on here. And I do have to apologize for standing you up on my way back from Mille Lacs.
I wanted to bring that up. That's okay, because I was going to see if Rich was going to jump in, and that's when I was going to bring that up. So that's okay. Leave that alone until later. Yeah, I'll rub that in your face later. But afterwards, I found out why you stood me up. You guys got on some good fish, so it's okay.
We had a time, man. It was a good time.
It's all good. Well, so for everybody that giveaway tonight, I didn't have anything planned, but I did grab some stuff here real quick. I got a shirt, the Extra Tackle Warehouse shirt that we get when you spend, what is it, $100 or whatever. It's in the XL variety for someone. Got one of those. I've got a Fish Lab shirt that I got when I got, I'll give you a hint. It's big. You put tackle in it when you walk around on the banks. So I'm going to have a video of that coming soon. But this is an extra large, and it's got a pocket in front. I hate pocket shirts, so that's going in the giveaway. It's a good shirt. I can't stand pocket shirts. I got a couple jigs here. Both 10-horse and I use these. The Procaster, awesome little jig, black and blue, green pumpkin. I've got some homemade craws. And I had another thing of craws here. I had a crankbait, and these are some other craws. Watermelon red. I think they were a Carl's thing or something I had. I just grabbed some random stuff out of my giveaway box. So it should be a pretty decent little giveaway package. I'll do that later. I'll pick a random winner. The only catch is you have to be here, because I'm going to pick a winner, and you have to be here to say, yes, I'm here, and I'll get you the giveaway. Oh, so 10-horse Monty, Gabe, for everybody that doesn't know you, give us the elevator speech, who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a letter carrier with the United States Postal Service. I live in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is about 100 miles south of St. Louis. And like yourself, I have a YouTube channel. It's mostly to do with lakes in southern Illinois. I live right on the Mississippi River, so Illinois obviously is just to the east of me, and I do a lot of fishing over there because they have a lot more to offer. There's a bunch of lakes within an hour drive, so I end up going over there. They've got a good variety of lakes. And then I also, I fish some tournaments, some BFL tournaments as a co-angler out of the back of the boat. I've been fishing the Ozark division this year. So that's been Table Rock Lake, Truman Lake, and Lake of the Ozarks. We just finished up our super tournament, which is the 5th tournament of the year. And I qualified for the regional. So that was the goal. And that's going to be next week on Norfolk Lake down in Arkansas. Don't know much about it. I just know it's super, super clear. Got a lot of deep water. You got a river you can run up if you want to get into, a little bit more stained water, a little bit more shallow cover, that kind of stuff. So I'm been making some phone calls, just kind of trying to figure out, what to expect, because, as like a co-angler, not that we were going to go down the co-angler side hole there or side.
We can, for sure. Yeah, it's open forum. We can dig into whatever we want tonight.
But you don't have a boat, obviously. You're fishing on the back of the boat, so you want to limit what you bring. It's kind of like bank fishing, it's in a way. It's just that you're in a boat. You can't bring all your stuff, so you have to kind of strategically pack stuff. Typically, I always say I want to get it down to 5 rods, but it usually ends up being like 7 or 8, and I typically use like 4 of those rods, but I like to have a couple spares in there in case I just want to throw something a few times just to check it, that way, not constantly like cutting stuff off and retying. If a lot of times, if you have to cut something off to retie something, you won't ever throw it. You'll just keep throwing what you've got tied on.
Yep.
So I'm excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool.
It's a 2-day deal.
Do you know who you're going to fish with, or no? Do you not know until like?
You won't know until the night before. It's a computer generated draw. So the way it works is they'll have a Zoom based meeting the night before the tournament. You'll get a text that'll notify you who your boater is. You'll have their contact information. So get a hold of them. You figure out where you want to meet at in the morning and what time. And some of the boaters are pretty open about what they've been doing, how they've been catching their fish. Some of them are a little more tight-lipped because obviously the co-angler is probably staying with another boater or has, friends that are boating, and they don't want you to, be sharing the info. But most of the time they're pretty general because, I tell them, are we fishing shallow or fishing deep? What are we doing? Moving baits? We soaking stuff? Because that way I can cut down.
Right. What you're going to bring.
Yeah. But yeah, so you'll get your contact information, get your boater's contact information the night before, and then just hook up.
I was wondering how that worked. You guys had like time to strategize together and like, oh, we're going to do this, or just kind of like, well, here we go. Good luck. Yeah,
you do what the boater does, man. That's the tricky part about being a co-angler. You have to fix the conditions, and part of the conditions are what the boater is doing. There's all different kinds of boaters. There's some of them are real laid back. They fish slow. You may be sitting out deeper, throwing a jig or a shaky head. And then, like the boater I had at Lake of the Ozarks, which is where the super tournament was at, he was fishing docks, swimming a jig, swimming like a 3/4 ounce jig around docks and covering as many docks as he could. And we were moving fast. So that's the kind of guy that's kind of tricky to fish behind because he's hitting all the high percentage areas really fast, and then he's moving to the next dock, and it's just moving all day long. And
so you're just throwing a wacky rig right behind his jig as soon as it hits, and hoping that something accidentally grabs yours.
It actually have to be like a Neko rig or something with some weight to get it down because you're moving so fast. But yeah,
okay.
Yeah, you kind of want to throw something different than the guy in the front of the boat. So it's a challenge, but I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, man. You get to meet a lot of really cool people.
See, yeah, and that was kind of the thought process behind tonight, because I know you do some tournament fishing. I know you have some. For those people that don't know, you have a YouTube channel, the 10 Horse Monty. And how did you get your name? Where did the 10 Horse Monty come from?
Good question. So most of the lakes that I fish are 10 horsepower lakes, and I do most of my fishing out of an aluminum boat, which the industry has labeled a 10 boat. So it's kind of a play on 10 horse outboard and 10 boat for the 10 horse part. And then my last name is Montgomery, and my uncle, his buddies used to always call him Monty. So I kind of picked up the Monty from him, and then you put it all together and it's 10 horse Monty.
I like it. Yeah. See, I have an aluminum kayak here as well. So I do the whole 10 rig. How big is yours?
It's a 16-footer.
Okay.
It's pretty wide. Yeah.
That's luxurious compared to my little 11-footer.
Well, I had a 1442 before I got this bigger boat, and I don't know if I could go back to it. It was really squirrely. I didn't realize how small it was.
Yeah. My 11-footer, that's what I tell people. Like, there's kayaks that are a lot safer than my little jumbo. People are like, you should put a deck on that. And I'm like, I can barely stand in the floor of that thing and not tip over. So
my buddy Jerry has like a 10-foot, little 10-foot aluminum boat that he has in his pond. It's got a link in it, and he's got a paddle. And it's crazy.
That's the way mine was. Yeah, they're sketchy. But that was kind of my thought process behind tonight. So, on your YouTube channel, you have pros. I see not too long ago you had Chris Grow on there, who actually was one of my doppelgangers when I had long hair. People are like, you look like Chris. So him, you've had pros, you've talked to pros, and the good point that you brought up is you can learn from some of those guys when you're a co-angler. And that's honestly the reason I would love to do it. I could care less about competing as a co-angler, but just to learn from those guys and watch the different styles. That's the tough part, is I wouldn't want to get paired up with some jerk. I would like to get with somebody that was kind of open and could learn and like, listen, dude, I'm not going to take any of your fish. I just want to learn. And, so that's kind of the thought process tonight is, pros versus the average angler. And we can go anywhere with this. And I'm going to rely on a lot of you fishing friends out there. Leave us questions. We can go anywhere from the YouTube side of it. The pros are certainly stepping into the YouTube game more. 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, you didn't see that. You didn't see pros out there with their own YouTube channels. They were doing the pro thing. So we can talk about YouTube stuff and their videos. We can talk about competing. We can talk about an average guy like me getting into professional angling, as a co or something like that. So we've got a bunch of different places to go tonight, and I figured you could kind of draw on some of your stuff. We could go down some different paths. I'm sure we'll get some cool questions from the people in here. Looks like we have 160 some people in here already, so I appreciate that a ton. So what are your thoughts? Do you have anything? I know I didn't give you much time to prepare, but do you have any, when I say a pro versus an average just weekend angler, what comes to mind? Does anything come to mind of, well, this is the big difference? Is there a difference between some of these pros that you see? Are they just glorified weekend anglers that fish tournaments?
No, man. There is a big difference. And the thing that comes to mind that I've learned from, one of the things that comes to mind that I've learned from talking to a lot of these professional bass fishermen, tournament fishermen, is how they're able to cover water faster than the average guy. Like find the pattern and know when to change. Typically, I fish quite a few tournaments, just kind of regional stuff, not even regional stuff, just local stuff. And I'll fish the local stuff out of the front of the boat, and then like the BFLs out of the back of the boat. But you get out on the water and you're trying to find a pattern. You're trying to pattern fish. You're trying to locate fish for an upcoming tournament or just for the day. I mean, it doesn't have to be a tournament. I know most of the people that a lot of the people that are on here are just, fishing for fun. And I do that all the time as well. But you still want to try to figure out how to find the fish. And I think that's something that the pros can do better than somebody like me. A lot of it has to do with the amount of time they're on the water. A lot of these guys are on the water 250, 300 days a year, putting in long hours. They've got the latest and greatest equipment. They've got things that the tools, electronics and this and that to help them find fish. But it really comes down to knowing when to leave an area and when to stay in an area.
That's a question I get asked a ton. People are like, when do I pick up and leave? I'm like, well, it depends on certain things when I look at it. But dude, I completely agree. I would die on that hill that the ability to become a pro angler is your ability to consistently find fish. I will cut that down the middle and say that is the determining factor to being a pro or not. There's certain things that go into it. Can you afford it? Can you, but like if all that's aside, I completely agree. Can you legitimately find fish? And it's not just like, the place you fish all the time or the place I fish all the time. It's, you literally are going around to a whole bunch of lakes that you can't just go fish every weekend. And you're expected to know, how are you going to find those fish? What stage are they in? Where are they at in this, place that you've only fished a few times?
Yeah, they can go to a new lake. Say it's a 20,000 acre lake, or let's say 30,000 acre lake. They'll break it down into a couple different sections, and they'll focus. If they have 3 days of practice, they may focus on 1.5 of those sections in each day of practice. And then based on what they find, they'll spend that final day just kind of fine comb, just going through that area that they decided on and kind of picking it apart and figure out which little spots and nooks and crannies they need to focus on. But it's amazing how fast that they can figure that stuff out. Where somebody like me, it takes me quite a while, to figure that out. So here's the questions I always have in my head when I'm out there trying to find fish. And I've talked to these guys about that, just to try to get some help on this stuff. It's like, are you in the right area and throwing the wrong bait, or are you just in the wrong area? And that's what they're good at figuring out. They only need a bite or two in an area to find out if it's something that they want to come back and fish in the tournament. Where I feel like I might need to get several more bites, or so let's say you're going through an area with a jig and you're not getting bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you go back through it with a chatterbait or a spinnerbait?
Sure.
You go back through it with a top water, with a swim bait, or do you just leave it? You kind of got to know, obviously you have to know the seasonal patterns, kind of what's supposed to be going on. You're going to make your bait selection based on watercolor and all that, blah, blah, blah. But it still comes down to, like you said, it comes down to finding those fish and knowing when to stay or when to go.
And that's a good point. People don't think about all that goes into, because what is it normally 3 days to pre-fish? Is that what they get?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got 3 days to pre-fish. So, a lot of people see just, what's on the end of them catching fish. But, if you kind of flip it around, they get 3 days to figure it out, as opposed to a weekend angler who may only get to fish one weekend, a month. They might only get a Saturday morning, or a full day or whatever. And, people will compare themselves to a pro. So that's one thing you have to cut right now is, if you're just a weekend angler and you only get to fish 2 weekends, out of the month, you've got to remember that a lot of these guys you're watching have done it for a long time, have pre-fished it for 3 days. So that's one thing I think people kind of get down on themselves for is, dude, I always see them catching fish. I struggle. Well, they struggle too. You're not seeing the work they put in. And you bring up a good point of, am I in the right spot with fish and throwing the wrong thing? Or am I throwing the wrong thing? Or excuse me, am I in a spot with fish and throwing the wrong deal, or am I throwing the right deal in a spot where there's no fish? So I guess my question to them, or my question to you, would be like, I could see getting burnt on, one thing we'll say is, one fish is not a pattern. So I almost feel like I could get burned if I went down a spot too fast. And have you ever seen that? Have you seen them go down, think they're really confident in something, and then come back and it just doesn't pan out?
Yeah. Or something changed, the next day. There's so many little subtle things that can change from one day to another. I mean, you can pull into an area and say you got some rain and it muddied up. Well, those fish were feeding by sight and it just kind of shut them down. Or the waterfalls 6 inches or a foot, and maybe you were catching them up shallow in bushes, overnight, the waterfalls, and they pull out. So you can spend a lot of time trying to relocate those fish, especially when you have so much confidence in an area. It happens all the time, even on these smaller lakes that I fish. You'll go up, you'll fish a point and catch the crap out of them, and then you have to wait a whole nother week to fish, because I get to fish like maybe once a week. And you'll go up to that point. You're dreaming about it at work. You're like, man, I cannot wait to smash them. And then you get there, you're all, you're thinking about it the whole drive, and you get there and they're gone. It's like, where did they go?
There's 5 boats already piled up on it, and you're like,
yeah. You're right, because you don't know what happened between the time you were there and the time you are now. There's no telling what could have happened.
Yeah, that's one thing I tell people too, is because a lot of new anglers that I talk to, they'll have a lake that they like, or a pond or whatever, and they'll say, dude, yeah, I was there fishing it, and they were hitting this, and this on this side. And they'll say, well, I fished it, later, and that later could be a week, 2 weeks, a month. Dude, I couldn't even buy a bite. Like, there was no fish in there. And I'm like, that's the thing, is you want to keep those past experiences in your kind of index of thoughts and options. But every time you go there, it's almost like a different lake. I mean, it really is. You might know the same, it's the same structure, same fish, but I mean, like you said, you could completely hammer them on a point with a jerkbait, and then 2 weeks later, they're not there.
Yeah. Well, here's something that happened today. I right before we went live, I was telling you, I just got back from fishing about, 45 minutes to an hour ago. Had a good day on a buzzbait. I was throwing, this is just a little 1/4 ounce. It's actually a Cumberland Pro, a white painted blade. Which I haven't thrown a white blade a whole bunch until this year, but I threw a spook. My confidence bait lately, the last month, has been a Super Spook Junior, and I feel like if they're looking up, I can go through an area and get some bites, and I just wasn't getting any bites, so I kind of wrote the topwater thing off. I caught a few on a shaky head and a few on a jig. And then for some reason, I'm like, I'm just going to throw this buzzbait. It was rainy, overcast, windy. And I kept thinking they got to be looking up. And I also had a couple bites on that shaky head on the fall. So I knew they were suspended. Mm-hmm. So I picked up this buzzbait and I immediately started getting bites, and I ended up catching, it was a stupid buzzbait day. I mean, I honestly caught probably 50 fish on this buzzbait. I mean, some of them were like 8 inches.
Who
Like
cares?
between exactly. Between 8 inches and 3 pounds. But if I wouldn't have made that adjustment from a spook to a buzzbait, if I would have just gave up on the topwater bite, wrote it off, they're not biting my confidence topwater, so they're not biting topwater.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the day that I had.
We all do that. I think we're all guilty of, you get in those little ruts of this bait's been working and this, I feel like I go through my cycles of, 1 year it was like a whopper plopper. I couldn't put it down. And if they weren't biting a whopper plopper, no, dude, I'm moving on to a spinner bait or something else. So I think we're all guilty of that. That's a great point.
Yeah. Sometimes you just want to catch them on a certain bait. I've done that. You're like, today I want to catch them on a jig, and you just keep that jig and you kind of, you try to force it. You try to make it work, and the fish, they'll tell you if they want it or not. A lot of times we've all got our confidence baits. Well, sometimes your confidence baits just aren't what the fish are wanting, and you got to kind of, it may just be like a size tweak, or it may be a trailer tweak, it may be a color tweak. So it's fish are something else, man. That's what gets me with fishing. That's what keeps me coming back, is that each day is different. No matter if it's a farm pond or if it's a 50,000 acre lake, it's different every day.
Yep. George, I did see George dropped a $2 donation. I never asked for donations, but anybody that does donate, I appreciate it a ton. George with the $2 super sticker. George, if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to leave it. I will try to get to those. I see Tackle Junkie in the house. What's up, Jim?
What's up, TJ?
Trails in here. Got all kinds of folks in here. Now, there was a question that I saw and wondered, I've honestly never asked anybody this, so better ask someone sane fishing says, you ever casted toward the front of the boat? Is there an unwritten rule for being a co of if you split the boat in half, you get the back, or how does that work?
You kind of develop a rhythm. It depends on who you're fishing with and what you're fishing. If you're moving fast, you have to cast towards the front of the boat just to keep some kind of rhythm. And also, if you're casting out of the back of the boat and you're getting hung up, A, you're going to lose all your stuff. B, if he's a nice guy and he decides that he will go back and get your stuff off, that's good. But a lot of times you don't want to be going back to get your stuff because you kind of got a rhythm going. But yeah, most of the time you don't want to be casting over the guy's shoulder for sure. I mean, that's a no-no.
That makes sense.
With fishing docks, I just came back from Lake of the Ozarks. Typically a dock, you'll start at the front corner and then fish one side and go and fish across the front. But there'll be docks, if you're in a narrow cut, there'll be docks on the other side within casting distance, or as you're going down the side of a dock, there'll be another dock right here. Now, it's a common courtesy to not cast at the dock across from the dock you're fishing, or the dock on the other side of the cut, because especially if you know that boater is working all those docks. So you're basically cutting him off and catching his fish in front of him if you throw at those other docks. There's co-anglers that do it. I mean, I've heard stories. They can't keep you from doing it. The boater cannot tell you where you can't fish, but it is common courtesy to fish the docks that, are in front of you, and you're fishing used water a lot. But that's just the way it is. That's just part of being a co-angler. It's a whole different ballgame in the back of the boat.
Okay. So Jonathan Thompson asked, and it's for bank fishing, but I was going to kind of ask you, so for rods, boxes, all that. So when I'm going out bank fishing, usually I just have my tackle backpack, and then I would say 4 rods is probably average of what I take with me. Just walking around the banks. That way I've got, different stuff to try. Like you said, if I only bring one, I'm probably going to fish whatever I want him to bite. And there's not a real good chance I'm going to be switching up a lot, or a lot of the new anglers out there are switching baits every 3 casts. So if you have, a couple things, at least you can kind of cycle. But how does that work for you? So you said you take, maybe 8 rods with you. How do you do gear? Do you have one big duffel bag or something you bring, or what?
I found a backpack is the way to go. It's a tackle bag / backpack. It holds 4 of the 3600, the Plano 3600s. Yep. And then it's got a couple zippered areas where you can put some soft plastics. Actually the one I'm using, I've been running it for 7 years, and it's time to upgrade, but I can't find one just like it. It had a zip on. It's supposed to be for a little lunch cooler thing.
Is it the Bass Pro one?
Cool. No, it was from Academy.
Oh yeah.
They have one
like that.
Those are so sweet, because instead of putting my sandwich and my water and stuff in that. I used it for my soft plastics. So I had all my soft plastics in there. I zipped it to the backpack. And then when I got in the boat, I unzipped that thing and I had it all separate. But yeah, I don't take too much, as the years go by, I take less and less because you end up having all this stuff that you don't really use. And I've seen a couple times where it's made a difference that I didn't have something that the boater had. And a lot of times they'll end up giving you one.
Oh,
especially after they get a limit. Yeah. It just depends on who it is. But I'd say 95% of the boaters that I've had have been super, super cool. Yeah. So I don't know, 5 to 8 rods and then just 4 3600s and then some plastics is basically what I take.
Okay. So it's about like a bank fishing mission. I honestly would have figured like people took more, I guess, being a co, but that makes sense. It's old boy's boat. You don't want to be bringing 15 suitcases and 20 rods.
Yeah, you got to deal with it. You got to deal with it all day long. So
right.
even those rods that are there, if you're going on a big boat ride, if you got braid, it ends up getting wrapped around your other rods.
Yeah.
And, if you're, you see a fish bust and you want to pull out of top water, it's tangled up in your other rods down there. And so the more is or less is more.
Let's see. We've got a whole bunch of good questions here. I'm just trying to run through some.
I see Carl down there. He says, Monty, have you ever fished Lake Gerardo? Haven't fished it in over 30 years. Yeah. Carl, that's like 25 minutes from my house. That's about 140 to 160 acre lake. And it's one of those lakes where if I don't have time to go somewhere else, if I just have a few hours, I'll hook up the boat and make a trip out there. It's one of those lakes that was rumored to have the state record bass. Do you have any of those lakes? There's always those lakes where the state record lives in, but nobody's ever caught it.
No. Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
No.
It seems like every state has that lake.
No, all of ours are private farm ponds. So everybody has those where they talk about, oh yeah, my grandpa caught a 10-pounder. Oh, really? Where was it out of? Oh, this farm pond. That's everything right here in Iowa. And people will show you a picture. Oh, this had to have been 9 pounds. I'm like, that's not 9 pounds, but did you weigh it? No, it's got to be out of this farm pond. I'm like, why can't I get any of these farm ponds?
Yeah, no kidding.
Let me fish these.
They grow big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a bunch of them around here. We have almost 200 people in here. If you're just joining, welcome. It is Tin Horse and I. Randizzle couldn't join. He's got an ear infection or something going on. I have to slap him around. But giveaway tonight is I've got some plastics. I've got some jigs. I've got a crankbait somewhere around here that fell. Jigs, plastics, and I've got a couple T-shirts, a tackle warehouse, and a fish lab. So you just have to be here later when I do the random giveaway picker deal that I'll do on here so everybody can see. But tonight we're talking pros versus the average Joes. So we're just kind of throwing questions at Tin Horse. And if anybody has questions out there, I'm trying to run through and look. There's been a bunch of good chatter on the side here. Mr. Alex Redenhouse, I said, you ever killed a gopher with a stick? No, I've never had the need to dispatch a gopher with a stick.
I killed a gopher with the shotgun about 6 years ago. We had one in the backyard. I have a retaining wall. I live right on about a 5 acre lake. And I kept seeing this gopher and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Look at the pretty gopher. He's so cute, and I was just watching him. And, the next day I went down there and I noticed that there was this big hole he had dug down along the retaining wall. And then, the day after that, I realized what he was doing. He was damaging the yard. So I took out my 12 gauge and I ended all that. And so years later, we had a fence put in and the guy came over with a post hole digger and he was just making the holes for the fence post. And the post hole digger just disappeared.
All the way through?
All the way through. It was like a 7-foot hole. It ran all the way along that retaining wall. It was a mess off of that one gopher.
That's crazy. Yeah, they can do a ton of damage. The moles. We have like mole, and I don't know if like he's using the gopher word loosely, but we have moles and stuff here that they can just wreck a yard.
They're bad news.
Yeah, bucket mouth junkie. All my fish on a wacky rig. I don't know if it's because of all the pressure from the $100 plus swim baiters in my area. Dude, there's nothing wrong with tossing the wacky rig and catching fish. That's actually something my dad wants to throw tomorrow. He's not a huge finesse guy. So he's, crankbait, spinnerbait, chatterbait, top water. He's like, I want to try some Ned rig or wacky rig. He's like, I don't ever do that. So I'm like, sweet. Tying some wacky rigs tomorrow and catch some fish. I am going to throw the big glide bait. I have had a couple bites on my big glide bait that I custom painted. Haven't landed anything yet, but that was promising. One day I'll figure out the glide bait game.
That Max Scent General, man, wacky rig. That's a good one. Have you thrown the Max Scent General much?
I have.
That's a good one. I like it quite a bit.
I hate feeling, the Max Scent lures. Like, it reminds me of like
Weird
skin you would cut off like a pig corpse or something. Yes. I don't know. It's really weird. Like, it almost reminds me of like, I don't even know. It's weird. Like,
it's strange.
It almost feels, I don't know. They feel weird. It doesn't feel like, I'm like, what's really in this? Like, oh, fish bite and hold on longer. I'm like, well,
yeah, I was rigging up one of the Max Scent kingtail worms today, and I know exactly. They get kind of sticky, kind of. They're I don't know what it is. It's some weird.
It's almost like spongy. Like, it feels like a sponge. I don't know. It's weird. Alberto Lopez has a good question. Would you say there's a lure that pros just don't throw, like a frowned upon lure or something like that?
That's a good question.
I would say if it's catching fish, probably not, as long as it's legal, right? I mean,
I really don't think there is. I think it's you hear people bad mouthing the Ned rig when it first came out, but after everybody started winning tournaments on it, you don't hear about that anymore. The A rig is probably another one that's kind of got a bad rep when it first came out, but there's tournaments where if you're not throwing an A rig, you're not winning. Those February and March tournaments, the fish they're too deep for a jerkbait sometimes, or they just need all of that going on to get them to trigger. And if you're not throwing an A rig, you're not going to win the tournament, that's for sure, or even get a check.
I've never done any of that. That was going to be my guess, though, was it wouldn't be necessarily that people would look down on it. It would depend on the type of boater you were with, who would say, like, oh, if you get out the sissy stick, we're not going to be doing any of that crap type thing. But dude, if your money's on the line and that's your job, to me, you're throwing whatever's going to catch fish,
I think you're right.
Let's see. There was another question I saw here when we were going through before we got on the whole gopher topic. State record largemouth came out of my home lake. Sean Z says, dang, Sean, I would be parking my butt at that lake and fishing it a bunch.
Hey, Texas Huntsman says the flying lure. Okay, so check this out. I had Dion Hibden. Dion Hibden is a legend. His dad, Guido Hibden. Guido Hibden developed the Guido bug. A lot of people have heard of that.
Yep.
Lake of the Ozarks guy. He actually still has the flying lure in his boat. He has a box of flying lures, and he says there's certain times where the fish will get under floats on docks and you can't get anything underneath there. He'll pitch that little flying lure and it'll actually swim up underneath those docks. So it's some pros even use the flying lure.
What was the fly? Oh, this is not what I was thinking. Oh, I was thinking of the helicopter lure.
Yeah, no, it's
okay.
It's more subtle than that.
You've got to be kidding me. This dude is using it. Oh,
yeah, that's kind of
it's essentially like a tube, like a flat tube.
It is, yeah.
I actually have some of these still.
It's weighted to swim away from you. You give it slack line and it'll go right up underneath stuff.
Interesting. Here, I can share in case anybody wanted to see real quick. How do I do that? Share screen.
I've caught fish on the helicopter lure though in farm ponds.
Oh my gosh. I remember we had them, and I'm like, these
ridiculous.
are the dumbest looking things ever. Can you guys see that? Yeah, there we go. So the flying lure, it's essentially a tube. I'm not real mad at that one. No. Like I said, I think I still have a couple of those. I must have at some point had them. I had the banjo minnow. I never had any success on that or the helicopter lure. Funny enough, though, we were talking about, and this is probably going to start showing up on people's Google machines now because Google's always listening. I had somebody, Chris Russ. We were talking about the banjo minnow. He's like, dude, I haven't heard of the banjo minnow in forever. I started getting advertisements for it.
Really? Isn't that weird how that works? It's creepy.
Google's always listening. But
creepy.
I was talking to him about, or he actually told me about it, the nose fluke thing that the guys at Tactical Bassin showed. He's like, have you heard of it? I'm like, no, I haven't. Told me about the video. I went looked up. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. You take like an owner centering pin, you screw it into the nose of the fluke, and then you take like a drop shot hook and hook it into that metal ring. So you've got your fluke here. there's a little metal ring inside it. You hook your hook in there. That way it's in metal and it can't just pull out the nose of the bait like a drop shot would. And I looked it up. I'm like, dude, that's essentially the banjo minnow. I'm like, they had the same thing going on how long ago? It was the same thing. You screwed. I'm like, Tactical Bass is ripping off the banjo minnow. We got laughing about it, and then he's like, dude, no, I've got ads showing up on my thing. I'm like, see,
that's funny. I think the banjo minnow had their weedless system was a little rubber band.
Rubber band.
Yeah.
Yep. The front of the hook was open. You put the rubber band, then you hooked it around the barb of the hook. Yep, sure was, dude.
That's
yeah.
Funny.
Jamal Zayed. Is that how you say it? Hopefully. Thoughts on braid to fluoro on a bait caster? Personally, I don't. I know there's some guys that like to. Usually, if you're running braid to fluoro on a bait caster, you're going to run a leader knot that's just before the reel so it doesn't go down into the reel, like if you're pitching and flipping. That's how I see guys doing it usually. I suppose you could go longer and stuff. I personally don't. I only run braid to a leader on my spinning setups. I've got, because I carry multiple casting, so I'll have just a full fluoro rod and then a full braid one if I need it. So
the FG knot's the deal. I see Daniel T down there talking about the FG knot. I did the braid to fluoro like punching before, and I lost about a 5 to 6 pounder trying to pull them out of the mat, and that was it. I haven't messed with it since. But I think there's maybe situations like if you're Seth Fighter that you need to do it, because Seth Fighter's, he's one of the guys that does the braid to fluoro, and he's, he won Angler of the Year this year. So there's something to it, but I don't do it. I mean, I need to learn the FG knot for sure if I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah, the Alberto is mine. That's a really easy one to tie. So far have not had any break issues if you're looking for something easier. But yeah, I mean, the FG is so smooth. It's a great knot.
Yeah, that Alberto is awesome. But if you're really high impact hook setting with heavy stuff, you'll break that Alberto. For spinning rod, it is perfect. I mean, I caught
that's a good
smallmouth and everything with it, no problem.
That's good to know. Yeah, I don't do them on. I don't do it on baitcaster rigs, so that's really good to know. FG, practice your FG, folks. Ramon Outdoors, $2 bomb. Only have a few minutes to drop in saying what's up. Well, thanks for dropping in and dropping the donation. I appreciate that, my friend. So what else? What other questions do you all have? Pros versus the Joes. One thing I was thinking of earlier is like, let's go to the YouTube side of things. Do you think that YouTube is an outlet for pros to have another way to market and earn money? Or do you think it's just because they now have that at their disposal and it's like a way to market themselves they're doing it? What do you think? Have you thought about it? Like, have you ever given it, like, why are the pros getting into it? Did they see this big market and like, hey, that's just another stream of income? Like, why wouldn't I?
I think that it's a little bit of all that. I believe that they started seeing other pros, say pro number one started doing it, and then their sponsors noticed that they're getting a lot of views. Their sponsors are getting more time in front of viewers, which is, what advertising is all about. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of built up to where the sponsors were probably pushing them, saying, hey, you need to get your social media in check. You need to get your Instagram up and running, Facebook, and start a YouTube channel. And it kind of just morphed into that. And I think once people found out they can make a little bit of money off of it, that's always a bonus. But I think it's really just about exposure. It's, they use it to promote products a lot. Like Matt Steffen, we had Rich is on here, Hellabass. He had him on the other night. I had him on my live stream as well. Steffen's a pro, and he does just tip videos, but he's got his Bridgeford sweater on or his Striker hoodie on. Mm-hmm. So each one of those videos, his main sponsors are getting some advertising.
Marketing. Yeah, it's marketing.
Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of all that. But yeah, it's certainly saturated the market for sure. It's made an impact, I would say, the last several years on, especially like the smaller YouTubers and stuff. The pros have gotten so good at like just tips and tricks and just sharing their information. I think a lot of the pros don't like to talk about what they do, but I think they just want to go fish. They want to win tournaments. They want to make money that way. So they're perfectly fine with not being on social media, but I think it's the industry has just forced them to move towards that. They don't really, it's just, they have to now.
Yep. And it's interesting to me because like there's some pros that I watch and like I completely disagree with what they're saying. And that's the interesting part about fishing is I'm no pro. I'm nobody to tell somebody else that they're wrong or what they're doing. That doesn't make sense. You're wrong. There's a million ways to go out and catch fish. And just because it's not the way I do it doesn't mean it's, the wrong way, or, there's only one way to go down this path. And that's the thing I find interesting is like, dude, I would never do that. And these pros are like, oh, this is what I do. And I'm like, so is some of it just them getting on to talk about stuff? Is it, are they trying to advertise? Are they, and I feel like you can kind of see through that on some of them. Like they're just getting on there to regurgitate some stuff and get off. And then I feel like there's some of them that are like, they really enjoy it. They're talking about things that they would actually do. So it's interesting. It's just kind of interesting to see, like you were saying, because I guess what I was trying to get at was, do you think they're doing it because they like it? Or do you think a lot of these pros are just kind of being forced to do it and like, hey, listen, you need to do this? It's kind of what it is. Was it out of necessity and need, for marketing, or was it out of joy and like, oh, this would be fun to do? And I think that's kind of one big difference between like the regular angler and, a pro.
Yeah, I think a lot of them probably didn't want to do it. And hopefully as they did it a little more, they got good positive feedback from it. And they realized that they had a pretty good fan base and they got interactions. So it kind of started becoming something they looked forward to. I would hope that's how it starts working out for these guys. But yeah, it's interesting. That whole thing is so interesting. I think
like you said, a lot of them, they just want to fish. Like they don't want to have to mess with all this stuff. Cause people don't understand how much time goes into, getting your filming stuff ready, making sure you've got batteries, flipping it, they don't want to be farting around with all that. They just want to be catching fish. I don't have time to do all this. And then, you see some of them that are doing it and, it's like they actually enjoy it. So not a wrong way, right or wrong way for it. It's just, I think it's interesting because, some of them are like, I don't know. Some of them I just chuckle when I see, but.
Yeah, and it's like this. If a sponsor, I think there's some pros that probably may not like the products they're using. It's not their go-to products, but they're getting paid. They get paid to use them. Okay, so you've got that angle, but I also think that there are pros that have stuff they don't want to share. But
that's the tough part too. Yeah, you can't be doing like, "Hey, I'm going to go fish this. This is what I was catching. I want to like."
Yeah, I mean, there's so much out there. I mean, the live tournament footage has changed a lot of that secret stuff. Yeah. I mean, there's still ways to kind of get around it, but it's opened up a whole bunch of stuff. And see, let's face it, the first bait you buy a lot of times it's kind of like a Ford, Chevy, Dodge type of thing. Whatever your favorite, your first jig that you buy, okay? Say you buy a Cumberland Pro jig, okay? You take it out to your farm pond and you catch a 5-pounder on it. You're probably going to go and buy another jig, whatever brand it is. It's not necessarily that jig is the only jig that'll catch fish, because it's not. Jigs are pretty similar, most of them. There's different things to a jig, obviously, head design and skirt and blah, blah, blah. But bottom line is you can take just about any jig and catch a fish on it. But if the viewer sees a pro catching a fish on a certain brand, they're likely to go buy that brand. And if they catch a fish on that brand, they're going to continue to buy that brand for the rest of their lives. And then
it's mental. So much of fishing is mental. That's when I'll talk to somebody about, they're like, well, how do you get confident with this lure? And like a lot of times it's really just keeping that in your hand until you have one just outstanding day with it. And then once you've done that, it's like, oh my gosh, like, this light bulb clicks, and then you want to fish it. You know what that bite feels like. Okay, I was doing it on this lake. I was doing X, Y, and Z. I'm going to try to go to other lakes and copy that. Like, and I tell people, don't be scared of that, because even with me, like wake baits, like I can pick up a spinner bait and I'm pretty confident, time, place to throw it, if the spinner bait's the right deal or not. A wake bait, I never have a time where I'm like, oh, what would kill it right now? A wake bait, because they're awesome at, it's just, I don't put a time with it.
That's a bait that you get so few bites that you don't really have enough days on the water to where you get that feedback. I don't throw a wake bait that much. I mean, I've thrown the river to seas S-waver a little bit, and I've had a few follows, but I just, maybe if I get more time, maybe as I get closer to retirement and I can go fishing like 4 or 5 days a week, will I pick up a bait that I'm only going to get a couple bites on in a day or a couple follows on a day? But when I go out there, I'm trying to film a video for the channel. I'm trying to catch some fish because I love to catch fish. And I just haven't gotten to the point where I just want to throw a bait all day long and maybe only get a bite or two on it. So.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to go down the, the big glide bait rabbit hole of people want to see it. And it's like I feel like it's like this cult following of like, it's the cool thing to do, and I'm not knocking anybody that fishes. I'm like I said, fishing is completely up to you. And to those people's way of fishing, a lot of them are trophy anglers. Like they just want to catch a couple big fish and they're fine with that. I would rather just go out and catch a bunch of 1.5-pounders, 20 fish a day. That's fun to me. I don't care. I just want to be catching stuff. So like you said, it's hard for me when I'm trying to film a video. I want to be catching stuff. I can't fish 5-6 days a week. It's tough. Christopher brings up a good point. The Googans created a need for the pros to start YouTube channels, in my opinion. They figured out they can make money. I think that's a valid point. I think a lot of pros kind of caught on to that. Like you said, Scott Martin was, or somebody said it here. I don't remember if you said it or if I read it here, was talking about Scott Martin with that stuff. I think he's a prime example. He saw what they were doing and saw it as just another means to make money. And I'm not mad about that at all. If you're already out there fishing and stuff, why not share your story with people and try to help others? And I think it's a smart move, on them. It's just one more way to help them and make money. Jonathan Snape McLaren, the #1 fishing tip channel on YouTube is Tactical Bassin. Yeah, so you get channels like Tactical Bassin and Fluke, the big time channels that have been in it for a long time, sharing awesome tips. I think those guys kind of started in that weekend angler groove of, I just like fishing. I like making fishing videos. I want to help people out. And you see how much they grew off that and have morphed into this profession of, professional YouTube fishermen. They're not a pro. They're not fishing tournaments for money. They're making a living off of YouTube, and other sponsors. And it's cool that we see that, because it's like, that was kind of going to be one of the conversations I got into, was the melding of weekend angler meets pro angler. Like, you can legit make a living. I mean, how many channels do it out there now? The Googans, Lojo, I don't even know who the hell all the channels are out there. They're making a living off of fishing on YouTube. So are they a professional angler?
No, I think they're professional YouTubers.
Okay.
There's a difference in a professional YouTuber and a professional angler. I'm not saying that they couldn't go out and compete, because Milliken has kind of made a transformation. He's out fishing some tournaments, so I think
it's how you define it. Because if you look at a professional is somebody that makes money at doing something. So if you're making money fishing, you'd be a professional angler, right? Technically.
Yeah. Okay. So the word I'm missing is tournament angler.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And it's, right. I'm just playing devil's advocate, trying to be a prick about it to you.
No, it's all good.
There's people that ask those questions to me and, put me on the spot. I'm like, hell, I don't know. I'm like, I'm neither of those things. I still have a full-time job. I got 2 damn kids running around upstairs.
Amen.
I've only fished 1 tournament and I won it. Now, this is when I was 12 years old, but hey, I am unbeaten in my tournament fishing career.
Yeah, quit while you're ahead. I mean, quit while you're ahead.
Dude, I retired 100% win ratio champion. So, but it's just fun questions like that I get thrown for people. I'm like, hell, I don't know. I'm just making videos because it's fun, and then you get the money aspect. I never thought when I started YouTube, and kind of the same for you, right? When we started YouTube, I never dreamed of, and maybe you did, but I never dreamed of like making money off of it and like getting checks from Google. Like, to me, that was never the deal. It was, I like to fish. I took a long hiatus, like the dark years. I fished all the way up until, through high school, and then in college, I did some kickboxing and stuff, and like a 12-year span there where I really didn't fish much at all, maybe once a month, if even that, every few months. Then you come back to, and it's like, you see these people doing this stuff, and I got into, kind of teach and share my story. But I would say the majority of people that start it don't dream of like making money on YouTube. Maybe now more so because, more people could see it, but I don't know.
Yeah, my channel was just started based off nobody having any content in this area on any of these lakes around here. So I just started, I started out super simple, and I'm still very simple in my channel, but I bought some cheap cameras and I just go out and film. And then, as time went on, I practiced putting them together a little bit better and doing a little bit more editing and stuff. But it was basically just out of, it's almost like a public service so when people want to know about some small lake over here in Southeast Missouri, there's probably a video on my channel that they can go to and at least see what the lake looks like, and the bank, the watercolor, the boat ramp, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where it came from. And then like the tournament videos, when I do the BFL stuff, I always put a chesty on and I filmed that day. And I've only had one pro that didn't want me to film that day.
Oh, that was going to be another question. That was going to be another question that I sidelined. So yeah, tell me about that. So you've only had one person that said, don't share that. Did they give you like a time limit, or did he say, I don't want you filming on the boat?
No, he's a guide on Table Rock. Pete Winters, well-known guide. He's been, that's his living. He's been doing it for 30 years, and he didn't want anybody to see where he was fishing at. And so I had my handheld cam just laying in the boat. And when I caught a keeper, I would just kind of hold the handheld out towards the middle of the lake, so you really couldn't see any docks or anything, and just say something. But he caught a lot of fish. That was the first time I ever saw somebody catching fish on live scope. He was throwing an Alabama rig, and we were fishing. This is really, really interesting how this works. He was fishing standing timber that was in about 40 foot of water, and it stopped at about 15 foot below the water surface. But he was throwing an A-rig, and he could see his A-rig on the live scope, and he would watch it come down, and he would reel it at the same level as those treetops, and the spotted bass would come up out of the trees and grab that A-rig, and he saw every bite. Well, I didn't have access to that, obviously, because I'm in the back of the boat. So I lost like 4 or 5 A-rigs because I couldn't see the trees. He could see, when you roll a little faster to get it up above, but he didn't want anybody doing any kind of video. And it was kind of disappointing because I was really excited to get that draw, and I thought it would be really cool to have a video with Pete Winters. But other than that, it's been I've fished with Roger Fitzpatrick a couple times. He's a well-known Lake of the Ozark stud, and we had a great time. I did 2 videos with him. Several other guys that have had videos on Kentucky. I've had videos on Kentucky Lake and Truman and Table Rock. No problems. But I understand it. If a guy's out there making his money off of tournament fishing or as a guide, the first thing that's going to happen as soon as you drop that video, there's going to be people that are going to be pausing and zooming in. They're going to figure out where he's at, and they're going to get an approximation. And his little places that he uses to make his living are going to be gone. So I got to respect that.
Yeah, and that's something even, and I don't want to forget Matthew's comment here. That's something that I've seen even fishing locally, because now, I'm not a big channel by any means, but I have people recognizing me here and stuff and stopping to say, hey, and like, oh, I'm fishing, these things because of you. And I know they're fishing a lot of the spots because of me that they may or may not have known before, but fishing pressure. And that's, they're public lakes. Like, I don't care, go fish them. But, I've heard people like getting death threats of, oh, dude, you burnt this spot. Like, I never better see you around that. Like, dude, it's public water. One, you need to chill out. But 2, like, I get it in a tournament sense, because especially if you're fishing like local stuff that you fish all the time, I almost think it would hurt you to make those videos. Like if I'm fishing, the same few local spots, it's almost like, how do you do that in a tasteful way? Do you wait? Because like you said, do you release it a month later when things have completely changed? Do you, I don't know. I've thought about that. Like, would it just piss the other guys in the club off, or, the circuit?
Yeah, it's, around here, the lakes are really small. And I kind of battled with that a couple years ago when I started getting a little bit more serious into YouTube. Do I want to name the lake that I'm fishing, or do I just want to make it a technique specific type of video? And, kind of what got people to come to my channel was by me showing some of the lakes and actually naming the lakes. And it's probably hurt me sometimes. It's probably put a lot of pressure on the fish in some of the areas that I like to fish. But to me, if somebody's watching the video and they want to go to Cedar Lake, is a lake that I fish a lot. I have a lot of videos off Cedar Lake in Southern Illinois. Somebody wants to go to Cedar Lake, they watch a couple of my videos and they find out where I'm at and they go there and catch fish. I'm fine with that. I'm glad they had a good day on the water. Now, fishing tournaments over there, you know, it's a gamble because you're showing people spots. You really are.
Yep.
And it's a small lake. It's less than 2,000 acres. It's not that hard to figure out where you are. So I know that just from watching some of my videos, people can find where I'm at. But, you know, I'm okay with that. It's just part of it.
Yeah, it's something I struggle with. Like, even if I was thinking about, you know, getting into, you know, trying to do a coast, I would like to try to do some coast sometime just to learn and try to get some people, you know, in the front of boat that I could talk with. I would hope that I get the luck of the draw that it was somebody cool. But, you know, that's something I'd struggle with is, do I want to make that video? Like, are those people going to get pissed? You know, I don't know.
Yeah. I talk to them. I'll say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I got a YouTube channel. Do you mind if I shoot some video today? And they're like, no, that's fine. So I'll do an intro in the boat before we take off. And then on the way out, I'll say, hey, if there's anything that you don't want me to show, tell me. And I'll make sure that it won't end up in the video. And at the end of the day, if it's a couple days later, I said, this video won't come out for a couple weeks. If you think about something, shoot me a text, call me. Say, hey, that scene when we were in Buck Creek and I caught that fish on the third dock from the back on a black and blue jig, skipping underneath the third stall and jet ski, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Just tell me. I won't put it in there. I have no problem with that. So that's kind of how I play that.
I'm the same way. Yeah. Like, I don't name lakes and stuff that I go to. If it's local people that ask me about it, you know, I'll tell them. Like, my thing is, I made the mistake of showing a local person one time. It's like, oh, I watched your videos, and I didn't really know the person. I'm like, oh yeah, man, I was fishing over here. Oh. Well, it just so happened like a week later, I went there, and dude had like 2 really good sized fish on a stringer. He's like, oh yeah, I keep everything I catch. I'm like, oh no, we can't do that, dude. Like, I'll go buy you supper, like. You know, so that's the hard part. But I think Matthew said it too. Actually, I've got his comment pinned. But he said, you know, if you're good enough to go out there and catch fish, you're going to be more than likely better off than those random people because they've got to time at the exact same time. They got to know, you know, what to throw, how to work it, where to work it, you know. So I kind of agree with Matthew on that. Like, there's more to it than just, I could tell 10 people I was catching fish on this lake doing this. Are they actually going to be able to replicate that and catch fish? A lot of them probably not. You know? Yeah,
probably not, because a lot of times I can go back and do the same thing and not replicate it,
and not catch them. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Matthew said, if you want to get a quality wake bait that won't break the bank, try a toxic bait. I was going to ask you, Matthew, is that Caesar over there? Because Caesar actually is another person that I've had multiple people ask me, are you related to Caesar at Toxic Baits? I'm like, no, I've never talked to the guy, but I looked him up. I'm like, yeah, I kind of do look like that guy. So that's funny if it is. But yeah, he makes some beautiful baits. He's one of the OGs in the bait making community. What else do we have here? My butter was I
was just looking at that comment right there. It's funny.
Baxter just said, are you still going live? I thought you were going live at 8. I was going to send people your way. I didn't realize it was 8:30. Damn, we've been on for an hour. I need to do our giveaway. He said, my boater this year in BFL said, if I'm filming, better catch him or he's going to look like a bad boater.
Yeah. That's the way it is, man. You could look like a bad co-angler too, and I'll still put the video out. I mean, there's been several videos where I've only caught one fish. You know, that's just the way that's kind of how I do my stuff, man. I go out and I go fishing, and it is what it is. I mean, I just try to keep it real and just show, because everybody does the same thing. There's people that go out and don't catch anything. Sometimes I don't catch anything. You know, I mean, obviously, if I don't catch anything, I probably won't have a video. But you'll see me struggle. You know, that's real. That's fishing. It's not catching.
Ray, I completely agree with this. And this is the difference is, like, you might have a lake where your lake limit, because you have to look at lake limits too. You just can't keep everything. You know, some of the local lakes I've fished here, there's old boys with buckets that are keeping any damn thing that bites their line, right? And that pisses me off, you know, because it's, you know, I try to practice good, what's the word?
Management.
Fish management. Yeah, I try to practice that. You know, ice fishing, I keep fish. Like, I like eating cold water fish. I think they taste better than, you know, warm fish. So, you know, if we got on some bluegill, crappie, or whatever, I'll keep them. But you're right. Keeping smaller bass is going to take out, you know, thin that population, because you've got to think there's only enough food in there, you know, for so many bass to eat and get big. Now they might still be living and eating, but you're not going to grow big fish. So I completely agree. If you've got a 14-inch limit in your lake, yeah, you catch 4 or 5 14 inchers in a lake that's saturated. I have nothing wrong with that. My issue is when you keep 4 and 5 pound fish, like this guy that I was talking about had maybe, I don't know, a 2-pounder, and then one that was probably close to 5, and he's like, yeah, I had just liver out there sitting, I'm trying to catch catfish, and he keeps this 5-pound bass. My issue with that is, in the lakes around here, if you're looking at maybe that bass can grow half a pound a year, you're looking at an 8 to 10 year old fish, and some of the smallies are kind of the same way up north. They don't. It's not like they get that big overnight. So I don't have a problem with keeping eating bass. Just doing what's good for the lake. So that's my point. But yeah, I'm not against keeping and eating some. It's kind of like the deer population here in Iowa. There's some people that say you can't kill any deer. Well, if you don't, you're going to have more car wrecks. You're going to have deer dying of disease, deer starving. They can't make it through the winter if there's too big of a herd. So yeah, it's kind of,
you got to manage stuff, man, for sure.
Yeah, it's management.
You'll in a farm pond, if you just let it go rampant, most of the time there'll be an overabundance of small fish, whichever breed it is. Definitely don't want crappie in your pond because they will take over.
Exactly.
But
yep, they're competing for bass forage. They're eating the same thing bass are.
Right. Derek has a question here I'd like to address.
Yeah,
he says,
throw it out.
How does someone get into the co-angler game? Well, if you have a local bass club, that's kind of how I started getting into tournament fishing. The bass club is probably one of the grassroots way of getting involved in tournament fishing. It's really laid back. You'll be fishing with people local. You'll learn the local lakes that are in your area. And then if you want to move up to something else, there are local, like a step up from a bass club. It'd be like a USA Bassin or ABA that aren't quite the BFL, like MLF level, but they're kind of in between. So there's that stuff out there. But as far as the BFLs, if you want to get involved in the BFLs, they typically start in February or March of every year, and you can go to MLF, their website, and it'll kind of walk you through it. It's a $75 annual membership. You pay that membership, you can fish any of the divisions, and then the tournaments as a co-angler are $100 a piece for the first 4, and the super tournament's like $150. It's a good time. If you're thinking about it, I would look into a local bass club first. Get some experience for a couple of years doing that. Get the feel of the tournament game, and then if you like it, take some steps on moving into a different direction. As far as the BFLs, there's a lot of different divisions, so you'll obviously want to find the division that's somewhere around your neck of the woods. It just makes it easier. Like I fished the LBL division up until 2 years ago, which is Kentucky Lake. That's 2 hours from my house, which is really nice. But Kentucky Lake has been on a downward trend. Well, it was on a downward trend. It's kind of flattened out, starting to come back. So I jumped in a few of those this year, but I fished the entire Ozark division. Those lakes are 5.5 hour drive, which is kind of a haul. So the LBL division, Kentucky Lake, was a lot more convenient, 2 hour drive. But if you go there and you don't catch any fish, you don't have a good time. So I jumped into the Ozark division. But check it out, Derek. I mean, I think you'll like it. It's a good time.
That's good info. I need to get into a local club or something. That'd be fun to even learn from some of the the local sticks. There's a lot of local guys that go under the radar. People don't realize how many good people are around. Like,
oh yeah,
the fish in the area. All right, so we're gonna do our giveaway quick. I just got a $5 bomb from Solitary Refinement. Thank you very much for the donation, brother. I appreciate you, sir. All right, so tonight it's gonna be #Monty. So if you would like to be entered, I've got some craws, some jigs, a couple shirts. One's a large. Tackle Warehouse shirt, I think, is an extra large, did I say? For anybody that just joined, I will, you can barely see me. Let's see, can I do mine? Solo that real quick. Yeah. So I got some craws. These are some Carl's craws here. I've got a couple Cumberland jigs. I've got some homemade craws I threw in. I've got another thing of craws down there and a crankbait. And then I've got a extra large Tackle Warehouse shirt. That's the one you get for spending, I don't know, $100 or whatever. And then a Fish Lab shirt. I got a new tackle backpack from Fish Lab. They threw in a large shirt with a front pocket. I do not get down with the front pocket t-shirt game. So that's going in there for you. But hashtag Monty, because Mr. Tin Horse Monty is our guest tonight. So you are the lucky word. You can't enter. I saw you over there typing. You can't enter.
It's a privilege. I was going to try sneaking in.
Okay, so we'll give people a couple minutes. I'm going to run. If people haven't moved everything already out. I see my guy Fat Boy Fishing in here. Michael Steak with the $4 super sticker. Thank you very much, brother. And I do have your giveaway to get packaging out to you, man. I have not forgot about you. Oh, something else. Something funny that I saw the other day. Actually, it was today. It wasn't the other day. Somebody said, Debo, I've never seen you send any of these giveaways out. I think you're a fake. I think you're doing fake giveaways.
He's calling you out, man.
Fake giveaways to get subscribers. And I'm like, when I saw it, I'm like, oh my God. Like,
I was a box of honey buns.
Yeah, I was pissed and I'm like, no, don't feed the trolls. I'm like, dude, he's like, I've been watching you for a year and I've never won. I'm like, listen, if you've watched me for a year and never won, like you've heard me talk about giveaways. The moral of the story, folks, I don't do fake giveaways and hold them. We've seen multiple people on here talk about giveaways they've won. So I thought it was funny. I'm like, dude, I do so many giveaways, and for like somebody to come out and say that dude's watched one video of mine, he didn't win, and he's all salty about it. So
yeah, it takes all kinds, man. It takes all.
Oh man, dude, I was cracking up. I'm like, okay.
Funny. So how's this work? You have to hashtag Monty in the comment section. Is that how it works?
Yep. So I go over to my giveaway tool. I pick a deal. Actually, Fishing with Gramps. I don't know if I called him out earlier. He's in the comment section. Good dude. Had him on a little while ago, but he told me about it. I didn't even know this was a thing. On Streamer, you can do the giveaway tool, and you pick whatever giveaway thing is. People have to enter it exactly. I press go. Anybody that enters it after that, I can draw. So it's a pretty freaking sweet giveaway.
That's cool. I'll have to do that. I've been doing a Sasquatch giveaway on my channel where I have the guests pick a number before we go live between 1 and 200. And then sometime during the show, I talk about Sasquatch. I just make some reference to Sasquatch. And then the audience will guess 1 to 200. Matt Steffen actually had a Sasquatch story. It freaked me out. He's the first guy on there. It's a good one. It's a really good
I'm going to go back and watch that. Don't tell me. Did he
it's about halfway through.
Okay. I'll go watch it. I'm a huge Bigfoot guy. I don't believe in Bigfoot. I want to believe in Bigfoot, but I get into all that stuff. Like I completely believe in aliens. I'm not going to say they're like the little green gray guys, but like, dude, the universe is so enormous. Like there's definitely other living life out there. I couldn't tell you what it is, but like that stuff just fascinates me. And I don't know. We could go down a whole nerd wormhole, but I think we're in. I think we've got, let's see. I did get a donation here. $20 bomb from someone. Daggum. Somebody loves me enough to give me a 20. Let's see, where'd it go? It got buried here. Kyle. Kyle's a good supporter of the channel. Just showing some love. You guys are great. Thoughts on a jerkbait rod? Kyle, I would say from fishing, bank fishing specifically. I don't remember if you fished from a boat a ton or not. Looks like you've got a very nice sized fish there from a boat. But I like fishing from the bank. I actually had a 6'8" and a 6'10" because usually like 7 foot's my go-to. But bank fishing, something shorter is so nice because, when you're bank fishing and you're working the rod, you don't want to be slapping the water or the grass or the rocks or whatever in front of you. Like I'm 6'1", so like a 6'10" to me is perfect. Like that's my perfect jerkbait rod. From a boat, you can get away with going something a little longer, because you're elevated up. But I guess that's the thing I would say is don't be afraid to go to a shorter rod. I know people usually talk about 7 foot or 7'2", 7'3" for all other rod stuff, but jerkbait specifically, don't be afraid to go shorter. How about you, Gabe?
Yep, you nailed it, dude. You nailed it. My go-to jerkbait rod is a 6'8", and I'm like 6'2", but I like it to be really light. That's something that's real critical. Yep. With a jerkbait rod, in my opinion, and a topwater rod, is you want something that's really light that you don't have to work really hard because you're doing that action over and over for several hours. And if you don't have the right rod, it's going to wear you out. So
for sure,
work, smarter, not harder.
And one thing I would say is I know one question I get from a lot of people is, do I get a crankbait rod? And I would say don't go full crankbait rod because you don't want something that's so noodly when you're trying to work the jerkbait. It's like flopping all around is all I can think of. I know that's not a good analogy, but
well, no, you're right, because I've tried to do that and it works okay. Like there is a difference in a crankbait rod and a jerkbait rod. They're not. They'll both work with each other, but they're not ideal.
It's more of like a moderate fast, I guess is what I would say, instead of like a full moderate glass cranking type rod.
Right.
Where it's got the bend, so when you hit it, it's got the bend, but it comes back to pretty straight, not like, yeah, because I've tried it before too. I'm like, I can just use a crankbait rod, but the tip is going crazy. And the one big thing with, I'm guessing you're talking about a suspending jerkbait, is after you do your pop, whatever cadence, you want that bait to just sit there. And if you pop and you've got kind of semi-taut line, if your rod's going all over, that jerkbait's going to be going, people don't realize how much that bait moves, even just moving the line a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know where else I was going with that, but there we go. Jerkbait.
No, you nailed it. You summed it up.
Hashtag Monty. Here we go. We are drawing. Am I sharing the screen? Okay. Yeah. We can see it. It's going to be a random winner. I see a bunch of good supporters coming up on the thing. Jonathan Snape McLean. That sounds like Snape was the guy from Harry Potter. McLean was actually, that's Randall's last name, but he's also the diehard McLean.
He was in Harry Potter too, wasn't he, Randall?
I don't know. Randizzle's his name's Randy, but
like an extra maybe in the background walking by or something.
Yeah, dude, he could have been Hagrid. He probably was Hagrid's double.
I like how that slows down right before it stops.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's building the suspense. Yeah, it's sweet. Fish with Gramps. I don't know if Gramps is still in here. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you showing me that. Okay, Jonathan, are you in here? Jonathan, if Jonathan's not in here, can I do another? Can you repick? Oh, yeah, you can draw again. Okay. So if he decided to enter and then just jump ship, might have to get another winner here. All right, well, we're going to answer a couple questions, too. We're going to give him just a minute. Oh, yeah, there he is. Hella Bass is joining me on Monday night. Oh, cool. Fishing with Gramps and Hella Bass. I love it. See, that's the cool thing about there's so much back and forth work from, people on YouTube. That's what I love is a lot of the people that I, talk to, we've all been on each other's channels. We kind of talk behind the scenes when we can. That's awesome. Oh, there it is, Jonathan. Okay, Jonathan, either hit me up on Instagram if you follow me or DEBO'S. I'm going to put it in the chat now. Make sure I don't type it wrong. DEBO'S at Gmail. So DEBO'Sfishing@gmail.com. If you don't have Instagram, hit me up over there and I will get your information. All right. Let's see. I had another bucket mouth junkie said, no, run it back. Somebody else. Justin. Oh, Justin, it was right there on you, dude. I thought you were going to get it. Just because I haven't seen too many supers, here's a $5 bomb for you, brother. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's not about the money I make on the lives. I do appreciate the money. Helps go into the giveaways, which are not cheap or free to send. So I appreciate that a lot, my friend. Let's see. Bam, look at that. Gramps Hunter said there's a Bigfoot in Santa Cruz. When I go out fishing, there's usually when I go out with Randall, there's a Bigfoot lumbering around behind me somewhere.
They're out there.
He's always
out there. You just never know. I mean, I'm kind of like you on it. You have to see it to totally believe it, but there's enough people that have real convincing stories that you can't write it off.
Yeah, and it's been such a long time. Like I don't know. There's
the Indians have a relationship.
Yeah. I would love to believe. I personally don't, but I think it'd be cool. Fish with Gramps, Hella Bass sounds good. Oh, whoops. I was actually going to read his wherever it was. He was talking about having Rich on his channel. Yeah. Hella Bass is joining me Monday night. Be there. Talk fall bite. That's what I was just joking with Tin Horse about before this. I'm like, my last ones, I haven't had anything picked. So I'm just like, we're talking about fall lures, fall fishing. I'm like, I didn't want to do that again this time. So I picked like pros versus Joes. So
yeah, me and Gramps are going to be battling it out on Monday night. That's on my live stream.
Throw down.
Yeah. So you guys on here can jump on his and then you can jump on mine and go back and forth. And
are you guys at the same time?
I'm at 7:30. I don't know what time he's going to be on there. What time are you going to be on there, Gramps?
Dobbins, a big tournament coming up. Yeah, Rich has got a good one. That'll be a good one. Yeah, make sure you guys go follow Fishing with Gramps. Follow Rich Hella Bass. I don't know if he's still in the comments posting. Tin Horse and I was kind of joking about it before. Gabe came up through close to my way and went up north and fished with Rich hella bass. And I was giving him crap before I was waiting to see if Rich would get in here because I'm like, yeah, he stood me up. We were actually going to fish together, but he stood me up to go fish with Rich. But I heard that they had a killer time up there. So I'm like, okay.
Well, I was going to hit you up on the way back. See? And
I thought you were going to hit me up on the way there. And then
I
you
don't
just
know.
ghosted me. Then on the way back, you're like, yeah, I'm actually already home. I had a good time with Rich. So yeah, sorry, bro.
Well, it came down to like being that's a long drive, like 12 hours.
Dude,
so I was like, I wanted to bad. And I was going through your area and I'm like, this is the moment. Like, this is the moment where I need to make that text. I need to make that phone call. And I was like, I was so tired for like the first 2 hours driving home. I don't know. I guess it just all kind of came when I slowed down, it all like snowballed me and I just felt it all.
Dude, no, because I am the worst driving home. There was a meme of somebody had like, it was a Squidward that did the dude from SpongeBob. Yeah, where he's like asleep like this, and it's like him like wide awake with like these bloodshot eyes, and it's like realizing you were asleep for the last 5 minutes on your drive home from fishing. I'm like, dude, when I go home, like if it's anywhere over an hour drive, like once I hit the hour mark, I'm like out. It's bad. Like I'm not a good long distance driver. So what else we got in here? 8:30 Eastern. Are you 8:30 Eastern?
I'm Central.
Or 7:30 Eastern?
I'm 8:47 Central. If you're talking to me.
No. What time are you going live? What time do you go live?
Oh, I'm sorry. We are 7:30 Central Standard Time. 7:30 Central.
Oh, same time then.
Yep.
You're gonna have to fight Gramps over it.
It's okay.
2 tabs at the same time. There you go. Okay, let's see. Let's take two more questions. Pros versus Joe's fishing. We're gonna pick. Each of us will pick one. I'll pick one. 10 horse can pick one. Whatever you guys have, it can be anything. YouTube related, fishing related, boat related, anything you've got of a pro versus a Joe. Do you guys and gals ever think of the two and compare them? Baits, gear. That was one I was going to bring up too. I'm sure you get a lot of questions on like budget gear and stuff. If somebody's just kind of a weekend angler, you don't want to go out and spend $1,000 on gear. And, I think that's a misconception that a lot of people see because a lot of these pros, they're sponsored by a fishing company. So they're getting all the high end stuff. Do you think those pros would do just as well if they had like budget gear, if they had $100 rods and reels? Do you think they would still do just as well, some of these guys, or do you think some of them would suffer and there is that much of a difference between the gear?
I don't think there's, let's just take the $100 rod price point. There's a lot of good rods between, well, even back it down to $80. The quality has just went through the roof the last several years, with the materials, and the manufacturers have really stepped up their game. That $80 to $100 price point is creating a really good product.
3 questions. Sorry.
So
3.
Okay. So no, I don't think so. I think it's kind of like Jimi Hendrix. You always hear about Jimi Hendrix could walk into a pawn shop and grab the crappiest guitar and make it sound like Jimi Hendrix. I play bass. I'm not the greatest bass player, but right here is what makes that bass sound good, or what makes that guitar sound good. And I think that's the same with equipment. If you've got a decent rod and reel, that's okay. It's right here. It's the experience that comes out. Are you going to be able to feather that thumb on the spool, and you got good line on it? You can make it work. I just think it's time on the water, and it's whoever's got that equipment in their hand.
I agree. Yep, I completely agree. The person makes it happen. I could give KVD all $100 combos, and he would still whoop anybody, locally just going out there. Now, once you start stepping up, and that's something I talk to people about, you're going to get lighter stuff. So it's going to be stuff that's more comfortable for them to fish all day. It's like, could I go out and play basketball in cons? Yeah, I could, but I'm going to be a lot more comfortable playing in my Jordans,
Yeah. I think there's a level. There's like, there is stuff that's
diminishing returns.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and you get into feel too, there are once you hit a certain price point, you gain a lot of sensitivity in your rod. Now you may not need that sensitivity for a topwater rod, but if you're dragging a jig or a worm, that makes a big difference.
Yep.
But buying a G Loomis rod, is not going to make you that much better of a fisherman, other than maybe a little bit of sensitivity. You know, it comes down to just getting out there and fishing and learning.
And then you're looking at the difference between $100 rod versus maybe a $200 rod. Like that's usually a big step up. Like there's a ton of $200 rods that, 250 that I've used. It's like, wow, that feels really good. Then you compare a $250 rod to a $600 rod, and it's like, you might not be able to feel anything different at all. Maybe the tiniest.
Do you have any of these? The Falcon?
I don't. The only Falcon one I have
Arrows?
is the M1 something swim bait rod. I've never used any other Falcon rods.
Okay, so check this out. My buddy that I fish team tournaments with, he sold me 2 of these at a really good price. And then my buddy Ron, the guy I went to Mille Lacs with, he's a guide up at Mille Lacs that I met up there. He sold me a couple of the Cara rods. They are super sweet. I've fallen in love with them. They're expensive. What's that?
Like what price point are those? I'm not
$229. They're very high end. I mean, I didn't pay.
That's not bad. I mean,
I didn't pay anything close to that, but God, they're very sensitive. I mean, it's taken me a little bit to get used to that when I'm fishing like a shaky head or a jig or something, because when a fish bites it, you really feel a ticket like hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. It transmits that energy real good. It's been I'm impressed with it. I fish a lot of Lew's custom light stuff, and they're a pretty good rod. But this Cara is definitely the next level in sensitivity. Great rod.
That's an interesting thing too that you say. The feel, because I've got rods that I will put right next to somebody else. People that I've talked to in here that are like, I had that rod or didn't like it, or I had that rod and it's the most sensitive rod I've ever used. A lot of it is how it feels to you. If it's comfortable and the way you hold it, like just fits. You have 2 people that, you can't get the same. That's why it's tough when people ask gear recommendations. I try to give them the facts of it, because I can't just say, I held it and it was X amount more sensitive or whatever. It's tough. But okay, let's see. So let's each pick a question. Here's one that we're both going to answer, because we have to get our weekly Googan question every week. Get a question about the Googans. Do the pros really use a lot of Googan baits? I think the pros that are sponsored by them definitely do. Like I've said before, and I say every week, there's some Googan baits that I like. There's some Googan baits that I think are silly. I think they're just like any other brand. I mean, I have nothing against the Googans. I admire what they've done. So it's like, once again, this comes up every week. It's like you have to be a Googan lover that only throws Googans 100%, or you have to hate them. It's like people don't want to see the in between. I'm in between. I've used some of theirs. Like I've said, the trench hog I think is a really cool bait.
The Bandito bug. Bandito bug's a really good one.
People love the Bandito bug, and I'm like, like I've got other ones I'd pick up before that. So it's like anything else.
They tear up. That's the only problem I've had with them, is they're kind of like a one fish bait. Maybe I heard that they reformulated the plastic to make it a little bit tougher, but I haven't bought any in a while. But yeah, man, there's nothing wrong with them. I mean, I think they make a lot of good stuff. They make a lot of like clickbait stuff too, like the clickbait. I don't think that's the greatest bladed jig out there by any means.
Yep, that's what I mean. Yep.
Whatever.
Okay, so here's mine. I've got my question picked out from Trevor. How many rods do the typical pros take on the boat compared to an average Joe? If I'm a pro and I'm making money living off of fishing, and I have a boat that can hold all of it, I would take as many as I could. And I've seen like the pros getting ready like a night before. KVD, I think it was when I was on the Burley when they were watching KVD do a prep or something the night before, and I think they said he had like 40 rods in his boat. And when you've got free gear from, he's with Lew's now, and they're giving him top of the line stuff, you've got your own rod and reel line through them, that you're making money off of. Hell yeah, I would carry as much as I could, and get away with, versus being an average angler like me. When I go out bag fishing, I'd say 4 is pretty average. When I go in my John boat, I'd say probably 8. I probably double it.
Yep. That's I don't know. I'm pretty bad. A lot of times I get all these ideals, like these grandiose ideals of I can spend 1 hour with this bait and make a video, 1 hour with this bait and make a video. And it never works, man. I ended up
Randy
4 hours
if he was
on
here right now, he would be blowing a gasket, because we have joked so much about, I try to do that exact same thing, and I'll call it out. I'm like, okay, dude, like I get a good topwater bite. I'm like, okay, dude, I told you I had these rigged up. If we can get X amount of more fish on this, I've got a video right here. We're done. We can move on to the next spot and do another one. And like now it's the running joke between us. So it's funny that you say that. I'm glad I'm not alone. I'm glad you admitted that.
I'm like, how can I get 17 videos in one day? I think that's the goal today. And so I ended up putting like 12 or 14 rods in the boat.
Yeah.
And it never works, man. It never works. I've been doing a thing on my channel. I've only had a couple videos out, but it's called One Man, One Bait, One Lake. And I just go to the lake and I take one bait. I fish one bait all day long. You know, I may have like, let's see, I'm trying to think of one. I did a frog, a frog video, right? So I had a couple different colors of frogs. So basically 2 rods. And that's all. I left all my other rods in the truck, or I didn't bring them. And you go out and that's all you fish. You figure out how to catch fish for that day. And it's not condition specific. I mean, I'm not picking like the ideal conditions for that day. I just go that day and I did a shaky head video too on a day when I should have been doing probably a frog video, and it was kind of tough, but I just stayed with that. I rigged it up, different baits on the shaky heads. I did one with the speed crawl, which is kind of cool. If you guys get a chance, go check it out. It's like, how many different ways can you catch a fish on a Zoom speed crawl? And I rigged them up like, I had a Neko rig speed crawl. I had a drop shot. I had a wacky rig. I had, all the different ways, and they were biting. I could have caught a lot of fish doing something different, but I kind of disciplined myself just to keep a speed crawl in there. It's a great challenge. I mean, anybody that's on here, go to the farm pond or go to your local lake and just take one bait, maybe a couple different colors, a couple different weights, and force yourself to figure out how to catch fish on that bait. It's pretty fun. Can be pretty fun.
Yeah.
Be frustrating too.
I was just going to say, yeah, dude, that's frustrating when you're trying to get a video and you're like, oh, dude, this has got to work. Like, you're really trying to push it. Like, did I just mess my whole day up? Did I screw this?
It's my only day off, man. I've had nothing to show for.
How about you?
I guess I got to find a question on here.
Yeah. Did you get a good one?
Let me see. I haven't really been looking.
Here's an interesting one. Should pros be limited to rods like golfers' number of clubs? That's an interesting question. You can only take 10 rods or something?
That is a good question. I don't know. I don't know if okay. So the guy you got to worry about is the guy that's a pro and he's got 2 rods out on the deck.
Exactly.
That equals dialed in.
Yep.
He is fine-tuned his pattern. He knows what he's going to do, and he's going to spend all his time doing that. You see a guy with like me that has 14 rods in the boat trying to make 17 videos.
Oh, this guy's going to get spun out when he doesn't catch it on the first 2. Yeah, he has no clue what's going to happen.
So I don't know, man. I don't know if we'll ever do that.
Critical Gravy in here said, thanks for the stream. Learned a ton. Like always, peace. Thanks for jumping in, man.
I'm not seeing that. You guys anybody got a question, like a co-angler, boater, tournament type question real quick, and I'll try to answer it for you.
See, how about this one? How about we grab this one? Stephanie Slayton, do pros fish mostly the baits they're sponsored by more than others? Average fishermen fish what they have confidence in.
That's a good one. Stephanie's on my channel all the time. She's a good girl.
What do you think?
I think they do. I don't know. I've had Mark Menendez on. Mark Menendez has been around for a while. He's a big Strike King guy. And he says, I asked, that questions came up before. He says he absolutely does everything within his power to catch fish on a Strike King product. But there are times when they may be biting something else. Maybe it's Doc Talk and they found out that they're not biting on the KVD, 300 series jerkbait. It's a mega bass bite for some reason. So maybe that, not saying that that's the product that he would do, but there are pros that will try to fish their sponsors' products. But there are times when they have to use something that's actually getting by, because it's a business. If they know they're biting on something else and they can't afford to be stubborn, they can try to make it happen on their baits. But if it's not going to happen, then they may have to make a change. And they've all got boxes that have non-sponsored products in it for sure.
This was going to be, Stephanie, this was going to be my exact answer to it. Is I have no problem working with a company, people talking about sponsorships. It's like, it seems like there's people really divided in it, YouTube. If you're sponsored, you're a piece of crap. Like you're just doing that for money, or people are like, yeah, you're sponsored with it and you're showing me like I like it. Kyle nailed it for me. Like this was going to be my answer. Is I think most of the pros are working with companies that they believe in and they want to fish their stuff anyway.
That's the ideal situation. Yep. It's ideal to be fishing something and then maybe you're promoting it just because you like it, and then that company reaches out. Next thing you know, you're
like
working
it,
with
use
that
it.
company.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
ideal.
All right, did you see one? And I see Rich just said he's jumping out. Guys and gals, make sure you go flood Baxter the Baitman's channel. He's going live right now at 9 Central. So feel free to jump out of here, go over to that one. I want to have Gabe grab one more. I did see some co-angler stuff. I don't know, it might have moved up. I don't know. Can you scroll up and look at stuff or no?
I can, yeah. Stephanie has another one if we don't find something else.
There was just, I saw somebody said, have you ever been asked to not fish until the boater has their limit? Has that ever happened?
No, that's not part of the deal. The boater can't tell you when to fish, when not to fish, where to fish, where not to fish. There are ways that they can keep you from fishing an area that they don't want you to fish, which you hope it never comes to that. They can
Try to back boat you in.
They can cut across your line with a trolling motor and break you off. Yeah, it can get bad. There's been a lot of fights in the boats between the boaters.
Really? See, that's what Chris's question was. Is any crazy co-angler stories like boaters getting upset? Have you ever had anything like it? You said 95% of your people were cool. Was there a 5%er that?
Well, the 5%er was probably more about. I'm trying to think. Just drawing a guy that. I don't want to say the actual lake, but this happened recently.
Yeah, don't give specifics. Just like
let's say this happened in the last couple of years. I had done real good the day before, finished really high in a tournament. It was a back-to-back tournament, so the fish were main lake spawning pockets. It was going on really, really good. So I was excited. I'd had some success the day before on that bait. I had everything rigged up. I was ready to go. It was a drop shot deal. So I had all my rods ready to go. And I get the text from MLF, call my boater, and we're doing exactly the opposite. Instead of fishing main lake stuff, we're running way, way, way up a river into dirty water. So instead of fishing water that was 10 to 15 foot visibility, we're fishing water that's 6 to a foot visibility. And we're fishing shallow. We're covering water. We're fishing visible cover, lay downs, things like that. So that's not necessarily a bad boater, but it's maybe you draw a boater that's doing something completely different than what is probably supposed to be going on. Mm-hmm. And you had a lot of confidence. So you'll get that. You'll get a guy that's covering a lot of water shallow. So as a co-angler, one of the guys that's the most difficult to fish behind is a guy that's a vacuum cleaner, like he's flipping every piece of visible cover with a jig and just really picking it apart. So by the time you get up to it, even if you're throwing something different, he's probably caught all the fish. Or a guy that's going down the bank with a square bill. He's 10 foot off the bank. He's got the trolling motor on like 5 or 6, and he's casting down the bank. And you've literally got nowhere to fish.
Yeah, you've turned up everything.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those. I mean, the best thing to do is probably throw out of the other side of the boat and just act like, you're standing on the bank pond fishing. That might be the best way to combat it. So I'll tell you real quick, an interesting story that happened at Lake of the Ozarks recently. I get a hold of my boater. Well, MLF tells me who I'm drawing. I text the guy. I called the guy, left a message. He sends me a text. He said he doesn't have any phone service really. Just meet him at the boat ramp in the morning. He's in a yellow Skeeter. So we go by water. I was staying on the 26 mile of the Osage. It's about a 15-minute run in the morning. We come over by water to the marina. So as we get into the marina, I call, find out where my boater's at. He's all the way in the back. So I see the yellow Skeeter. I jump in with him, and I sit down and I'm talking to him, and he's kind of quiet, but he says, this is the maiden voyage of the boat. And I said, what do you mean maiden voyage? He said, I bought this boat last week from a guy down in Louisiana. The motor was blown, and I just got it all put back together. And this is the first time I've had the boat out. So this is a big tournament. It's 180 boaters in it. So he said, I'm a boat mechanic, so I know what I'm doing. And he said we're making like a 40 or 50 mile run. So I'm thinking, great, you just put this boat together, you got it all snuffed up, and we're going to make a 40 mile run. I hope you're a good mechanic. So
That's
you never
sketchy.
know who you're going to sit in the boat with. It's just,
Yeah, that's sketchy.
yeah. And we made that run. We made a run up the Osage. We ran out of the Grand Glades up the Osage, which is the main river of Lake of the Ozarks. And then we headed up the Niangua River, got a couple miles up the Niangua, and we ran into a huge fog bank. You couldn't see. I mean, you could barely see the front of the boat. It was sketchy. And the guy had no electronics. He didn't have GPS on his boat at all. No graph. So we're running. He backed down a little bit, but we're still up on pad. We're still running, 28, 30 miles an hour in the fog, completely scary. And the Niangua is a lot narrower than the Osage. So there was a couple times where he would slow down and kind of get over towards the bank. And it's not just a slick bank. There's docks and piers and everything sticking out off the bank. And we'd find where we were at, and then he'd take off, and then we'd find where we were at, and then we'd fish a little bit. And finally the fog lifted. But I was on pins and needles. Sometimes you just trust in God you're going to make it okay.
Can you just let me out? I don't want to fish.
And then we fish up there, and then on the way back, Lake of the Ozarks is notorious for being arguably the roughest lake in the nation. I mean, it's called Lake of the Ocean. That's what the locals call it. And there's so many big, like 40, 50, 60 foot boats out there. On the way back, we're running. It's super rough. The guy's trolling motor pedal flies over the side of the boat, and it's slapping in the water up and down, just bam, bam. So he slows down a little bit. We can't shut it down because it's like a wash machine out there. So I crawl up on the deck of the boat, and I grab it and just throw it back in the boat, and it's just slapping the whole way. We go down a little bit further. Next thing you know, his whole instrument panel falls on the top of the steering wheel. The screws got wallowed out. All his gauges. So
he was a mechanic, not an electrician.
Yeah, he's holding it with one hand and driving. And so we got that all under control. And then like 5-10 minutes later, here comes this whopper plopper. Like the 130, the big whopper plopper. I think it was monkey butt. It comes sliding down the side of the boat around the console, hits the side of the boat, goes across his lap, and sticks him right in the thigh. We're out in the middle of all this madness. So he's got the dash that keeps wanting to come down, the trolling motor pedals up on the front flopping around, and he's got a whopper plopper, which is probably like a 1/0 hook or something, treble hook, stuck in his thigh. I don't know what to do. He reaches down and grabs it and just rips it out. When he rips it out, it gets stuck in his hand, right? So he's bleeding out of his thigh. He's got a whopper plopper in this hand. He just rips it out, throws it on the floor, and we made it back safe.
Yeah, that would definitely deter me. Good Lord. Well, dude, we are past our hour and a half. So everybody, dude, thank you for jumping on. 10 Horse Monty. If
thank you,
folks on my channel. Yeah, absolutely, man. Folks on the channel that don't know, where can they find you? What are you doing? You're doing the YouTube. You're doing the Instagram, like all of us. Where are you at?
Yeah, you can look at Gabe Montgomery Fishing on Facebook, 10 Horse Monty on Facebook, 10 Horse Monty 6 on Instagram, or 10 Horse Monty on YouTube. Guys, come over and check it out. I'm sure you'll find something on there that you like, and a little bit of tournament videos, a little bit of on the water stuff, a little bit of tips and techniques. I just kind of mix it up. So it's been good being on here, Debo. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure, brother. I appreciate the insight. It's always fun, So like I said, there's more than one way to do it. And, somebody that's a co-angler, something I've never experienced, those are fun stories to hear. Like it gives you a different respect for the stuff that guys and gals are out there doing. So thank you very much, man. That's it from us. Thank you all, everybody out there, for watching, donating, everybody that jumped on. We appreciate you all. And until next live.